The goal in a design visualization is, of course, to show the final design, making sure that you've got together everything that'll really bring across the look and feel of whatever it is you're showing. In this case, primarily the lobby of this reconditioned, remodeled office. I've got a few things left to bring in, the front desk and a chair principally, and then I've got some other furniture ready. We can go fairly far in simply placing things in, but I want to bring in a few detail objects. That brings me to an important point. When you're dealing in a visualization like this, it's important to work in iterations, to block out the space and get things fairly in place, to get a first pass at the lighting and then refine, and do the same with materials. There's lots of time in there to catch up, to make sure that things are looking, well, exactly right. I did the same with the landscape and even the blueprints, and now I'm ready for that final detail pass. The other reason I hold off on detail objects, as we can see here from this screen, is that often our detail objects tend to be fairly high polygon. We put a lot of modeling into small parts, and this really rings true for things like furniture and accessories. So rather than have them bulk out the time in my lighting, I'd rather leave them out until I'm generally happy with the lighting and ready to bring in those pieces. I'll take a look at some objects in both 3ds Max and Maya, and look at import and export processes, and what it looks like to bring in, well, the front desk. Here in Autodesk Maya, I've opened up the front desk scene, and this is in the Chapter 6 Exercise Files M06 Maya project. What I've done here is to model this front desk in pieces, treating the rails and stiles of all the different panels as separate objects, and going as far in this case as adding in a bevel where those join. We'll assume that they're biscuit joined or something similar. The big deal here is that I've got the panels with their laminated fills, and their joinery is exactly as I want. I've got the company logo on the front desk apron, the bar top is ready, and even the receptionist desk is in place. It's also closed up in back, so in case we get behind it or have a light coming down, it shadows properly. The only piece that's missing then is back here, where we can see this is ready to go against that void in the screen, touching against the wall. The last thing I've done is to take all of these objects and put their pivot here at 0, 0. I snap the pivot onto the bottom corner of the desk so that when this comes in and I snap it down on 0, it will sit on the floor. Then, I made sure with everything selected that I froze the transforms, choosing Modify and Freeze Transformations. And this way, everything's pivot is at 0, 0 and thinks it's at 0, 0 with a rotation of 0 and a scale of 1. So this comes in exactly as I intended. Now I'm ready to bring this in. I'll export this out as an FBX. And I've already put an FBX of the front desk in that folder. But just to see that process again on a detail object, I'll choose File and Export Selection. I'll always choose Export Selection in case I leave behind any hidden construction objects or other things. I'll export this out as an FBX, and choosing in the Export Selection dialog, FBX and Export. This will go into that Exports folder I've made in Scenes, and we can see there's already a front desk there. To cover again the export processes, I've left on my smoothing groups and smooth mesh. I've turned off any and all animation for these objects, so if there's any accidental animation, it does not come across. I'll make sure even this is really off, and that way there's nothing moving. I've got the units set to centimeters, unchecking automatic. For this scene I was working in inches, and I'm working in a Y-up world in this case. I'll hit Front Desk and Export Selection, but we can see it's already there and ready and waiting. Next, I'll take a look at a chair in 3ds Max and see what it looks like to get an object that's perhaps not so boxy ready. Here in 3ds Max, we can see I've modeled I'll call it the Zing chair, based on a Herman Miller chair, and I've added some of my own design touches and also refined the model a bit, adding in a little more fidelity on some of the curves on the legs. What I'm going to do is make sure again that the pivots are in the right place. Selecting everything in here, pressing W to move, and we can see that the pivot right now is centered directly under the stem or the base of the chair. I'll hit G for grid And as you can see, my snaps are registering on the grid points. I'll make sure that everything is snapped right here to 0, 0. And then go into a front view by pressing F, Z to zoom extents, and we can see in here that that chair needs its pivot moved slightly. Here in 3ds Max, I'll go to the Hierarchy tab, check Effect Pivot Only, and move everybody's pivot down to 0. I'll make sure in this case, by holding Shift and right-clicking, that Vertex is off, and then Shift and right-click to snap to the pivot, and now I'll pull it down truly at 0. So again, when this chair comes in, the wheels are definitively resting down on the floor. I'll turn off Effect Pivot Only, and I'm ready to export out this chair. Again, I'll choose, under the Max icon, Export, and Export Selected, making sure that I'm avoiding exporting any construction objects, boxes and so forth that were left in the scene. I'll export this out into the export directory, calling it the AC Zing chair, which is already there. I'll overwrite that file just so we can see it, and we can see the same options here. That I'm exporting out the smoothing groups, that animation is off, that I'm converting to centimeters in a Z-up world in this case, and just for safety, using FBX 2013. I'll click OK, and my chair is exported out and ready for bringing in. It's worth a little time to make sure that you're rigorous in how you're exporting things out, so that when they come in, chairs aren't floating off the floor. To make sure that the front desk is not the size of a bus, but actually is the size you designed. To make sure that the small accessories come in cleanly in your pipeline. Now bring in that front desk and see how it looks in place. Here in my project, what I'm going to do is to bring that into the Contents section. Again, importing in that front desk from the Maya project. Here in the M06 Maya project, in the Scenes Exports folder, in the Chapter 6 Exercise Files, I'll scroll down and I'll pick my front desk. With the front desk selected, I have some options in here. My standard FBX import. I'm going to make sure that light map UVs are being generated. And I've turned off auto-generate collision. I'll put a big box on it. I'm combining the meshes, and in this case we have some options. Are we importing materials and textures? I can bring them in, but there's a good chance I've already got these in from something else. So I'll import them and see where there are duplicates. I'll click Import, bring this object in, and tune up the materials a bit. My front desk came in. We can see the object, Lambert 1, black laminate, the logo, and walnut. It looks like I've already got my signage in place because I can see it here on the signs for, well, the lounge, for example. So when this comes in, it may have some duplicates, as I was trying to be consistent in using materials. I've also got walnut and even the wood ceruse laminate in already. I know I can take these and delete them, because this signage, if we take a look at it, has the other signs and the Stealth Giraffe logo. That'll disappear, and I've also used the walnut, so I'm going to take these and delete them. I'll force delete because I can reassign them to the desk. I'll also take out Lambert 1. And finally, I'm left with the wood, laminate, and so forth. I'll take these materials, move them over to Materials, and there's no movement errors. I'll do the same with the other pieces and make sure that these all came across properly. I get an error here, a failed rename. It looks like the wood ceruse, laminate, color, and normal are already there, as they came in with the initial import of textures. So I'll delete these, and then look at the materials on the front desk. I'll double click on it. And again with a detail object like this, I want to make sure I get the colliders optimized and the materials in the right place. Here's my wood laminate. For the wood laminate, it doesn't look like I have a duplicate of this material, but it does need its maps. I'll double click on it, and we can see where we need to put in those textures, so I'll use the ones I've already got in place. For the texture sample for the base color, I'll scroll down, and here's wood laminate. Then I'll do the same with the normal. Again, scrolling down or searching in here and putting in the right piece. Now with these in, that wood really shines nicely. And I'll take the alpha from that over to the spec. Then I can put in the roughness, which is actually part of that normal. If we look at this map in here, NR, normal and roughness, tells us where it should go. It's a nice rough surface on this laminate. We could invert it if we need, or crank up the specularity. I'm going to leave it alone for the moment, save this material, and check out the others. There's a world grid on here, and that's actually where that walnut should go. So I'll drop down and type in wall, and we start to see wood walnut, which I'll put in. And finally, this world grid is actually that sign. So I'll drop down here and look for SI, and we start to see signage. I'll bring in my signage, and we should see that apply. It does look like we have a couple more in here. There's more elements going on. So I'll try the signage down here in element 4. Sometimes you do see things like this, where a lot of different parts come in. Now this looks like it's in the right place. And so what we can see here is somewhere an extra polygon right here on the back had the signage. I'll change that over to be that wood laminate. And now we're in good shape. We've got that Ceruz laminate on the apron, bar top, and panels, the wood walnut we've already made on the sides, and the Stealth Giraffe logo right on the front. While I'm here, I'll go over the colliders, much like I did with the desk previously. Wiping out the collision and adding in a box simplified. With this in place, I'll scale it and pull it forward. Then I'll add in one more, scale it, and pull it to the side for the return. My colliders are in place, my materials are assigned properly, and I've avoided some material duplication in that second file. I'll click Save and place this front desk in. I'll take my front desk, drag it into my scene, and now I'll get it right in place. It appears automatically on the floor properly, and that's what I want. That if we look at the details on this, it's coming in the right place, and we can even register it by holding V for snap and snapping in. I've got my front desk in place, and it's ready for a light bake, but it looks good here. It's snapped down to the floor, back up against the wall, and obviously it's bright, but it definitely matches in the theme of that room. Now I'll bring in the chair and see what else I need to do in detail. Again, the reason I'm not bringing this in is it's a lot of polys, as is the chair, and it's not really contributing to the overall lighting as much as, say, the floor or the ceiling. For the chair then, I'll follow the same process, importing it in, and for this chair, I'll import generating light map UVs, but not collision. When the chair comes in, I'll double click on it and get the colliders set up. We can see our texture comes across nicely. And what I'll do on my chair is look at how I can make a collision in here that's not quite a box. I'll try a 10-side collision, and that looks pretty good. I can also try maybe even a 26, and that seems to be a pretty good fit. It's fitting nicely around the volume of the chair so that if I bump into it, it'll move properly. But there's no odd corners sticking out. So when you're bringing in detail objects, you can use things like this, where we see a collision that's much more simplified but fitted to that object very well. Now with that in, I'll bring in my chair. I'll drag my chair in, and the chair comes in right onto the floor. With that chair in place, I just need to position it behind the desk, but it shows up very nicely. I'll move it over, pull it back, and now it's ready for somebody to sit at. It looks like it's stuck down to the floor well. Again, we can always snap it if we need, holding V and pulling it in place, snapping on to the vertices as need be. Again, this chair is screaming bright because I'm missing a light bake, but those details are in, and I can continue to bring in more and more elements in here, really fleshing out the feel of this space, bringing in those separate working files, optimizing their materials and colliders, and getting this scene really ready to show.